how it came across my radar, but I guess the oldest person in the world recently passed. I mean, I guess it's always happening. It's not something that's
No. Brad's still with us. What are you talking about?
No, okay, so listen, Kevin, Brad, listen, I need you to focus on this. So the oldest person in the world died, and they were talking about how they weren't entirely sure how old she was, because I guess she was very rural France, and the record keeping, I guess, dodgy. I don't know. It's not like France didn't know how to write, but anyway. So it got me thinking that if I was born into some non-writing society, it doesn't matter when. Most of human history has been, you lived and you died, and no one wrote down when you were born. I don't know that I would know how old I am if you asked me today. Yeah. Like if there was not a calendar system, I might say 35, I might say 65. I have no idea. Do you guys know, Kevin, Brad, how old you are? If you didn't know?
I have to ask my wife all the time, wait, how old am I? What did I turn this year?
It's true. And you have a GD phone in your hand that can tell you instantaneously. Yes.
Just doing that math, for some reason, it just breaks my brain where I'm just like, wait, hold, how old am I?
It would have been nice to have been born on a nice even year, like 1970. Right. Then you could do the math, but I was born in 69, and I can never do the math.
Nice.
And I'll be...
No, but you're right, though. 69 from a liberal arts perspective is a tricky number to do math from.
It's not my strong suit to begin with. And I've had a number of Sunday mornings, which I'll be honest with you, it kind of depended on Saturday night whether I feel like 35 or 65.
But you're right, though. Imagine being born in January of the year 1900 or January of the year 2000.
Easy.
That's one of life's greatest gifts right there. You're like, how old are you? I'm 25. How old are you?
I'm 25
37.
and 3 months and 16 days. How old are you?
Exactly.
Although for that kind of person, they're like, whenever the year change comes around, they're like, oh, I keep writing last year's age on my checks. Oh, boy.
And for those of you who are under 53 listening, a check is something people used to do to pay a bill. They would write a check.
Oh, you motherfucker for throwing me
For those of you under 25, a bill is something that your parents pay on your behalf.
And on that note, I'm going to say hello, everybody, and welcome to Comic Lab, the show about making comics.
And making a living from comics. I'm Brad Geiger, the editor of the Webcomics Handbook on Substack and the creator of Evil Inc.
And I'm Brad's friend, Dave Kellett, and also Kevin McShane's friend, Kevin McShane of Kevin Comics, joining us today. But I'm also the cartoonist of Drive and Sheldon and co-director of Stripped.
And this week's Hour of Comics Advice is made possible by your support at patreon.com/comiclab. So Kevin, let's talk comics.
Oh, did you hear that?
Oh my God! I genuinely felt like a spouse that had been cheated on right there. That hurt.
It's like shouting the wrong name during sex.
In 6 years, that's never happened before. Hot damn you, Brad Geiger! I gave you my heart. I gave you the 6 best years of my life. Damn you!
I already told you guys before we started that I felt like an interloper, and now I just feel awful.
I'll tell you what, Kevin, I guess this ring comes right off, doesn't it? It comes right off. Oh, so I've got to open up the door and welcome our dear friend Kevin McShane onto the podcast. I think he has been a guest on the show 2, 3, 4 times. Not enough for my taste.
Yes.
But we have him on for a very special reason today. For probably going on 3 years now. Brad, myself, and Kevin McShane have been planning a project. At first, sort of the whisper in the wind and becoming increasingly solidified. Yeah. And now we are very happy to announce that it's launching. And so we wanted to have our dear friend Kevin on the show to talk about it. Kevin, what is that? What is that project?
Well, let me tell you, Dave, it's something very special to our heart. No. It is a new YouTube show called The Wrong Way. And what it is a drawing show in which the three of us, 3 veteran cartoonists, come together to draw your favorite cartoon characters in a way that won't get you sued. because like when you're drawing fan art and everything, you want to put it online and everything, but there's always that possibility that Marvel or whoever, their lawyers, they're going to throw their lawyers at you, and then you're going to have to take it down. Worst case scenario, they're going to take away your house. They're going to take away your firstborn. And we don't, this is a public service. We don't want that to happen to our viewers.
Yes.
And so we're coming together to show people how to draw SpongeBob SquarePants, Sonic the Hedgehog, Shrek, whoever, just in a way that gives you plausible legal deniability.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah. And as we started talking about this, it was like the curveball of the concept really appealed to me, because as we're teaching you the wrong way to draw SpongeBob, we're actually teaching you all of these great drawing tips and techniques and stuff like that. The SpongeBob that we draw looks nothing like SpongeBob for Kevin's aforementioned legal reasons. But at the same time, you're seeing right there on the screen each of our drawing tablets and how that drawing comes to life. And you're actually kind of learning a little bit about art.
Yeah, but Brad's burying the lead here. So yes, Kevin is right. We are drawing delightful IP protected or copyright protected IP. Brad is right. You are learning about art, but let's not bury the lead, gentlemen. It's also 30 to 40 minutes of dear friends tearing the living hell out of each other about their drawing ability, about what they're drawing, about how they're drawing, about how they look that day. Yeah. It is a damn delight in terms of tearing each other apart. I love it.
It was so fun because that was the most organic part of the show. We're like,
it's our mutual hatred for one another.
Because that part was never written out, right? We all said we did what Kevin said, we did what Brad said, then we turned the mics on. And all of a sudden, we start. Well, hold on. I'm not going to try to explain it to you, Kevin. You brought a clip, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, that's like very like late night show. Kevin, you
I felt like Carson just now.
Good job.
The TV just rose up from behind the couch. Yeah.
Now, if you're under 53 years old, Johnny Carson was late night TV talk show host. Go ahead, Kevin.
All right. Anyway, so yeah, I brought a couple of audio only clips because I realized we're not on camera. From the show, and just talking about what Dave was talking about in terms of it just being a bunch of friends just ripping on each other. Here's a clip from our first episode, which we're drawing SpongeBob, in which Dave happens to drop the little factoid that I don't think everybody knows, but Dave is colorblind. So here we go.
So fun fact about me, gents, I am actually colorblind. So
that is fun. I like your definition of fun. What else? What else you got in store? Wow,
that's a good one.
When you take your kids to the fair, is did you just sit out in the parking lot?
All right. Well, so this has been the segment where Dave opens up and shares something personable about himself, and Brad proceeds to tear him apart. That's fun for everybody involved. All right.
It was fun for me.
But what I'm getting at there in terms of colorblindness is that you might see some yellows that don't quite make sense. It might be a very greenish yellow is what I'm getting at there.
Oh,
okay.
That was
Do you guys know the shoe company Vans?
Oh,
I'm familiar with Vans.
I'm going somewhere with the story, Brad. Slow it down. Slow it down immediately. Immediately. Kevin, he's got like 7 jokes in the hopper. Do you guys know the shoe store Vans, Brad? Like you can feel him warming up. Like he's doing lining up. He's doing pre-stretches, like getting ready.
Let me tell you something about Vans.
So
no, I don't know the shoe store Vans.
Okay,
would you tell us about it?
Can you give me 1 second to get this thing out? All right, so the Van store. I'm a teen. I have my first summer job, and I'm buying a pair of shoes for myself. Like, what an exciting teen! Right?
Oh yeah.
But Vans had a summer sale, and I buy shoes. They're non-refundable, non-returnable because it's a sale. I thought I was buying tan shoes. They are apparently bright green, and everybody's laughing at me. So Brad. Now, Brad, go ahead. Go ahead, Brad. Have fun. Go with God. Take your swings. Down goes Frazier. Come on, take your swings.
But you got shoes, did you say?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We killed
I
Bob.
absolutely delight in this show. So the process of this show is we will get prompted of a different IP character that everyone knows, everyone loves. And we go, the whole point of the show is how far afield we can go while still maintaining the concept of what is Sonic the Hedgehog, what is SpongeBob SquarePants, what is Mario from Nintendo. And some of them, the two of you have absolutely delighted me in what the final results have been and what you've drawn. I absolutely delight in that.
Yeah. Brad is definitely big on the visual puns, I will say.
I definitely have an approach for these.
Yeah, not to give anything away, but every time we reveal Brad's drawing, it's always a second where Dave and I are like, huh. Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, there is. I've noticed a little lag when you guys are talking about my stuff. Just a little lag.
Have you seen the meme videos of like a couple that's painting each other over a glass of wine, and one person paints this gorgeous thing and turns it around, and the other one's like, "Oh, they love me," and then they flip theirs around, and you're like, "Oh, what the hell?" That is very often one of the three of us has drawn something where we're like, "What is SpongeBob doing? What is that entire monkey wrench? What's hold on here?"
Yeah. And also, I mean, we also lead by example a little bit because, of course, coming from an art school background, I know the importance of a constructive critique. And we take a little bit of time to point out that Kevin can't draw hands. And I think that's important.
Come on. You draw one pair of crappy hands in the first episode and they never let you live it down.
Yep.
Well, this might be fun for listeners to hear, though, because we are three veteran cartoonists starting a new project.
Yeah.
So it might be to pay it forward to younger cartoonists or other pro-am and amateur cartoonists out there is, how did this idea get started and how did we take action on it? Like, where do you guys remember? It was somewhere 2 or 3 years ago, right?
No, it was longer than that. It was during lockdown, if you remember.
Wow. Holy cats.
So the context was so when I worked at BuzzFeed, I had a YouTube show called Draw Off. And it was a similar format, but it was, everyone in a room drawing different characters. There was other different drawing challenges and whatnot. And it was moderately popular. But when lockdown came around, we obviously couldn't get everyone into the same room. So we did a remote version of it. And the unintended benefit of that was that I could put people in it who were not physically located in LA. And so if you guys remember, you were guests on an episode of Draw Off.
That's right.
It was the two of you drawing together. I don't remember what characters you were doing mashups, I think is what it was.
I did a Kermit the Frog.
Right.
I think the other one was Sponge. I think he was a Kermit the Frog Sponge. Yeah.
Yeah. But you were both on the show and we got to talking afterwards, and Brad was the one who came up with the idea. He was like, well, we should do like a faux instructional show where we, draw characters in a way that, is clear for IP and whatnot. I think we were originally going to call it How Not to Draw.
That's exactly right.
That's right. Yeah. And then Brad, unfortunately, Disney came along and and started that YouTube series with the same
with the exact same title.
Yeah.
How many times in my life have I been foiled by the Disney lawyers? I tell you what, this is like the 10th time. Oh.
Yeah, exactly. So we shot a pilot during lockdown, which you can actually watch on our Patreon. Which we'll talk about in a minute, unaired pilot, and just kind of a proof of concept. And we all just, like, three of us just had like a really great time doing it, that we were like, okay, well, let's do this. Yes. And I was in kind of a weird place with my job at BuzzFeed. And so kind of had to wait until that was done. And then once I moved on, I was like, okay, I'm free. We can do this. We can make this happen.
Yeah.
I had forgotten that it was Brad's idea. Kudos to Brad. Good job, Brad.
I'd forgotten it was my idea. So, and you know how full of myself I am. So you know how far back that goes. It was such a great concept, the idea of the three of us coming together. But Whose idea was Wrongo?
Oh boy.
Oh, so we a little context there. We have a character on the show, an animated character,
A fourth character.
who feeds us the prompts. And I'll be honest, that might have been me just testing out a voice while we were talking.
Yeah.
And then I think Kevin or you said, "Oh, we're doing that. Let's do that."
Yeah.
And
right?
Kevin was like, "Oh, I could animate that." And when we came up with the idea of the Wrong Way logo playing off of road signs, then Wrongo became a little animated arrow. And
Brad, I think, did the best version of that because we wanted him to kind of look crappy, and Brad happened. No, I'm saying that. I'm saying that in the way that like met the mood of the show, not in terms of Brad's art. Brad was doing a quick sketch.
No. I remember that specifically, Dave. You were like, okay, we need to have this drawn really, really badly. Who's the worst of the three of us?
Who of the three of us could really phone it in? Brad's been doing it for 25 years. Let's have him do it. And no, but Brad had this great sketch that I think executed on what we wanted. Anyway, so Wrongo becomes this little character in the show that feeds us the prompt, and then I think also leads the judging round at the very end.
He comes in at the end.
Unnecessary judging round at the end.
He comes in and decides who did the best version.
Yes,
or the worst,
and by the way, I
Yes.
should mention that these shows are live right now. For anyone that wants to watch, it's not something we're talking about for the future. They are the first episode is up on YouTube. It's over at youtube.com/@wrongwayshow. So youtube.com/@wrongwayshow, one word. And the first episode is up. And Kevin, there's also stuff on the Patreon page for this, right?
Yeah. So we started a Patreon for this, and if you go to the Patreon, you can, like I said, sign up at any tier, and you can watch the unaired pilot, the three of us in the middle of COVID lockdown. My hair is very short because it was growing back because I shaved it. I shaved my head bald
I remember.
for my birthday. And it's very rough. We draw Pikachu from Pokemon.
Yes.
In the pilot.
That's right.
Yeah, and then you can also watch extended cuts of each episode that's on YouTube. And in the extended cuts, there's more shop talk. We demonstrate techniques that we use and whatnot. And it gives you kind of a more robust experience. You can also, on our Patreon, if you're a member of our Patreon, you can vote on what characters we're going to be drawing in future episodes.
Yeah.
And just kind of, draw along and join us for more stuff.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm really excited about seeing, is having that community develop along the Wrong Way show, because obviously the stuff that we're going to put out on YouTube is going to be geared towards entertainment, right? That's going to be the main thrust. But on Patreon, those extended cuts, we actually, because we can't not, we're three guys that really love the craft of cartooning. So you get us together and we're going to end up talking about the how-to kind of stuff. Speaking of which, Kevin, don't you also have another clip?
Why, yes, Johnny, I do.
That was the most seamless and smooth transition I've ever heard. Speaking of which, Kevin, piece of paper being handed to Brad. Why, yes, Kevin, that we do have a clip to run. Let's run it, Johnny.
All right, fine. I will play the clip. So this is from our second episode where we're drawing Sonic the Hedgehog. And we start to talk about the specific brushes that we use when we're drawing.
So do you guys have like a preferred brush that you absolutely, like if you couldn't draw with it, you'd be genuinely sad about it?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
It's
you go
really-
first, Brad.
So, like a lot of times when I see people talking about digital art, they're like, I use this brush for this and that brush for that. And I got to be honest with you, since the day I started on Clip Studio, I downloaded a whole bunch of brushes and I settled on one inking brush and one penciling brush. I do all my penciling. You never see those marks. And then I take one inking brush, and 90% of the art is produced using that brush, unless it's a specialty brush. Like if I'm doing trees, I've got a brush for leaves. If I'm doing grass, so I'm not sitting there doing all that little stuff. But like in terms of the illustration,
I'm on Clip Studio too. What brush is it?
it's called Inker, and who was that guy? There was one person early on that became really famous for developing brushes and selling them.
Friendin?
Yep. It's
Friendin?
one of the Friendin brushes. It's Inker Brush V2, and I use it for almost everything.
Huh. All right. What pencil do you use?
It's literally just like darker pencil. That's what it's called. And there's one pen that I also like an awful lot. It's called Double Outline, and I don't know whether it was a Friendin brush or not, but it's basically it draws two lines that are kind of parallel to each other. Like if you're drawing a straw, you just draw one swipe with it, and you've got a straw.
That's actually really smart. I should get that brush.
So I'll go between those. What about you, Kevin? What are you using?
I just use the stock G pen for inking and the stock pencil for penciling. And the reason that I do that is because I don't want to get so tied down to one particular pencil or pen or anything like that. So now I can open Clip Studio on any computer and it has the tools that I use, right? And let me take it back to video games. That's the reason why I only use standard controllers whenever I play video games, because I want to be able to play any game, anytime, anywhere, and not have to be dependent on like a special controller.
To me, what this sounds like is Kevin McShane, Doomsday Prepper Inker, in the sense that like, Brad, I'm not letting the man get me down. I'm using the standard stock. They're not going to get me with their pay plans or their fancy words. I'm using the standard black digital ink. I'm not messing with anything. You can't get me to buy your fancy things.
You got me. Damn it.
That's why I only drink water from metal cans. That's the way I view it.
My name is Kevin McShane.
No, that's right. I do end every sentence by saying what my name is.
So my immediate takeaway thought from that is I want to always have Django Reinhardt playing in the background when I'm talking. I want that for everything in life. And also, can I just say that I love Brad, like younger Brad a decade ago when he's trying to choose a brush. He's like, I'll choose the inker that's called Inker. I'll choose the pencil that's called Pencil. All right, I'm done. Now that here I go for the next decade of my cartooning career.
Like no muss, no fuss. Inker, done. Next, not making decisions.
But to be fair, I don't like the overly clever brush names. You know what I mean? Where it's like, it doesn't tell you what it does.
Hint of spring. It's like, what is this, a French perfume? Why am I...
No, that was great. I see, it's kind of fun to listen to that because it was such a long time since we'd done that. I'd forgotten about all the conversations we had. You guys are really good at this.
Well, and this is the sort of deep dive that the Patreon will have, right, Kevin?
Yes,
that's what that clip
we're
was?
Gonna go. Yeah, that's going to be the deep stuff.
And so the deeper stuff on Patreon is both art supply, it's business approaches, it's philosophies of art that obviously don't necessarily feed into the half-hour episodes as well in terms of... and what's great is working with Kevin, I have to say, we record this remotely, and it's usually a 2.5, 3 hour session, maybe 3.5 hours. I don't know. How long do we allot for this? Yeah. But I cannot emphasize enough how comforting it is to be directed by Kevin in these things. Yeah. Because he has like a 5-page PDF of technical stuff to check.
Amazing.
It's the advantage of having come from BuzzFeed. It's like settings I didn't even know existed in my computer. He's like, all right, did you turn off the Gewürztraminer? And I'm like, what? I have no idea. How do I turn that? Where is that button? He's like, it's a subset file of the trampoline. And you're like, what? I don't know what a trampoline is. Oh, you got to turn that off or else you'll get the Gavankavact running wrong. And you're like, what? So huge shout out to Kevin for being so damn technically savvy on this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to, because when you're dealing with someone like Dave, who, no matter how many times I send him the PDF, he still is like, what are we doing? What's happening? What is this?
Shit, you're not wrong. Here's the Dave Kellett promise. I'll show up 5 minutes late and I'll be confused not having read the PDF.
It was so funny as you were saying that. You said, oh, he's got a 5-page PDF. And I'm like, I didn't know that you ever had it.
also, Dave is like, yeah, what is it? It's like a 3-hour session, 3.5 hours, and I'm like, yeah, it would be 2.5 if you were actually set up when we started.
I tell you what, this is what I get for starting a segment where I'm trying to compliment Kevin, and somehow it turns into Insult Dave hour. Well, great. I'm so glad that I brought that up.
Yeah, and it was only supposed to be Insult Dave for 15 minutes.
We're running over. So, Brad, who is this show for? Who is the Wrong Way show for?
You know what? Honest to God, I sitting there listening to it, I think it's just for me. I don't know who else, but even more than me, this is for people this is for obviously for youngsters who are just starting out, because obviously we're going to be talking a lot about art and all that other stuff, but it's also kind of instructive to see three guys that are out there drawing and also talking about their philosophy, their love, and coming up with stuff that looks a little bit off the wall. And I'll be the first one to say a lot of my stuff does not look as good as your stuff or as Kevin's stuff. You guys tend to be a little bit more polished than me, but I think it's okay for a young person to take a look at a screw up like me and say, well, somehow this guy exists. He's still out there doing stuff. So there's that too. Yeah.
If
I'm being totally
Brad
serious.
Can show that you can fail up, and you can too as a viewer of The Wrong Way show.
Yes, absolutely. But also for people who are further along, I think there's a little bit of something for people in the intermediate range. Yes. And also, if you've been doing this for a long time, I think you're going to get some of the more nuanced things that we talk about. Yeah. And also, because of the way that Kevin edits this together, as we're talking, you're seeing three people drawing in real time across your screen. So you're seeing a lot of technique just coming across as we're doing it.
I will say, like, one of the unintended benefits of this, as I'm editing it, is we have the screen capture of each one of your screens. Yeah. And so I literally get to watch Brad draw in real time. I get to watch Dave draw in real time. So I get to see like the choices that you're making and the tools that you're using, even things down to like how you're organizing your layers and things like that. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I never thought about that or doing it that way, Right.
It's so fun to see like the choices. Like if Kevin is drawing certain characters from face out to head out to body, and other types of characters from body into head into face. You know what I mean? Like, why is he making these choices? And it's fun to see the execution of Brad or Kevin, the way that they would do it in a totally different way than how I would do it. But I learn in the process of watching you two draw.
Speaking of learning from the process, I have changed the way I draw because of watching Kevin.
No way.
No, really?
I hated layer masks. Hated them. And okay. I still don't, I understand them better than I did a little while ago. But watching Kevin use layer masks, and then there was one time I actually asked you, I said, you actually use layer masks in an actual drawing. And you go, oh, I use them all the time. Yep. They're incredibly useful, and they save me from a lot of, going back and redoing things and mistakes. And it was like hearing Kevin say that, I'm like, I've got to rethink layer masks. And now I use layer masks left and right. I'll use dozens of them in an illustration anymore because it just kind of like, Brad, you got to stop, kind of grumping and groaning about this. And somebody like, a professional like Kevin, he's using them all the time. You got to think about it.
Well, you know what? I will take that as a compliment. That's great. But can I spring an idea on you guys? That we have not talked about that just came to me as we're talking about how we're learning from each other. Dave, you've always wanted to switch to Clip Studio. Yes. And you have said, you'll never have the opportunity. Here's my challenge. What if, on The Wrong Way, you only draw in Clip Studio?
Ooh.
So here's the sort of Wrong Way promise is that, are we making fun of each other? Yes. Are we intentionally taking a known and loved IP character and doing them intentionally wrong? Yes. But are you also in the process seeing a seasoned, decades-long cartoonist with very capable hands executing on a drawing? Yes. And I feel like if I were to switch to Clip Studio in a show, the third one would absolutely fall apart. You would see like a 4-year-old trying to learn how to ride a bike, and I would fall on my face. You guys would have finished drawings, and I'd be like, where is the pencil? I can't find the pencil.
To be fair, no, first of all, I totally get what you're saying, but because it's how I feel when I get to the last step where I have to color my own art, and I'm terrible at it.
Yes.
And it shows. I mean, my final colors do not look as good as yours because it's really not a talent set or a skill set that I ever developed or grew. So I know I totally get how you feel, because I feel a little bit awkward when I'm doing the coloring too. But it's at the same time, if it was something that you wanted to experiment for like one episode, we could kind of make it into a thing where if it doesn't turn out so great, you've got an excuse.
Well, as my entire career has shown, I'm not afraid of publicly embarrassing myself. So yes, I'm happy to do this.
Yeah.
But I will say this, in as much as we get to the end of every episode and we've all turned in delightful drawings, this is the honest to God truth. Every episode so far, there has been one drawing where I'm like, holy shit, my friend is talented.
Yes.
Like that,
Yes.
I don't know how they
Definitely.
did that drawing in 30 minutes. Like Kevin McShane had this one Woody from Toy Story that I was like, how did he do that in 25, 30 minutes? And Brad had a Sonic the Hedgehog that blew me away for humor in terms of the whole idea of it. And the execution was brilliant. And I come away, honest to God, every episode going, I don't know how they did that drawing in 25 minutes or 30 minutes.
And also, first of all, I remember going home that night and just telling my wife for hours about Kevin's Woody. But also,
Yikes.
but also what's happened is like I now am getting a little bit competitive because every time you guys come in with stuff and I'm like, they freaking blew me out of the water again. I've got to bring my A game next time. And I'm like I'm getting a little bit competitive with you guys because you mentioned Kevin's Sonic the Hedgehog. Dave, your Sonic the Hedgehog was next level good. It was
thank you.
And it pissed me off that it was so good because it was way better than mine.
Kevin, can I tell you how I know that is true with Brad, that the competition has actually raised his game? There was one episode, because we've recorded about 4 or 5 now in the can so far. And there was one episode where for the first time I incorporated a bunch of slowly revealing layers in the drawing where word balloons started to appear. And by God, if the next episode Brad didn't do that same damn trick, and I was like, motherfucker, he stole my reveal. All right, well, now we're one-upping each other in terms of trying to do it better.
When I saw that, I'm like, oh, that's a fantastic concept. I'm stealing the hell out of that. Don't you think twice about it. I absolutely stole it. It was a great thing to do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I loved it when I saw it. And the truth is, I laugh so damn much recording these things with you. It is so much fun. Yeah.
I go home just absolutely goofy.
So I genuinely think people should jump over youtube.com/@ that's the @ symbol, Wrong Way Show. And then, of course, we're all on all sorts of socials. It's over at patreon.com/Wrong Way Show. You can also go to wrongwayshow.com. That's an easy redirect. So wrongwayshow.com. But then we're also on socials with this, right? With Blue Sky and others.
Yeah, we are. We're on all the major socials because you have to be these days.
Yeah.
But there's something that I wanted to bring up that I feel like some of your listeners may be thinking about right now.
Yeah.
Is that we are starting a Patreon, launching a Patreon at the same time as we're launching the project.
I know where you're going with this.
Because for years and years, Brad has always said, with crowdfunding, first comes the crowd, then comes the funding.
Yeah.
So my question to you guys is, why is this different? Are we breaking Brad's rule here?
Oh, I'll tell you exactly why it's different. There's also another famous rule in Comic Lab. It's called don't do as I do as I say. No, seriously, what I would argue is that the three of us have been building our crowds for well over 20 years.
Yeah.
And all of us are going to be directing those crowds towards this. I think all of us have an audience that we can rely on. And and have built, and we can say, hey, here's this new thing I'm doing with two of my good friends. Why don't you go check it out?
Yeah, I would actually co-sign that. I've been online for 25 years. Brad's been online 25 years. Kev's been 25 years. We all, between BuzzFeed, Evil Inc., Sheldon, Drive, How to Make Webcomics, Draw Off,
Kevin
everything
Comics.
that we've done, what's Kevin Comics, we have all built up an audience, Kevin, to answer that question. And I think we are bringing, but also this is a project where unlike hey, I'm at my desk with a pen in my hand and a Cintiq, and that's all that this requires. Yeah. The Wrong Way Show actually does require a lot of man hours to get this darn thing done.
And that man is Kevin.
On Kevin's part. and so this is really something where both Brad and I, as friends, wanted Kevin to eventually try to see some recompense for. And so the launching with Patreon seemed like the smart way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we've been building our audiences. This is, I think, hopefully a tried and true format. And it's a project, that I really believe in. And so, why not give people something a little extra?
Absolutely,
if they want to support us.
Absolutely.
And so I forgot to ask you guys. So how often will these be released? It's about one.
Good to have you part of the
right?
team, Dave.
Yeah, exactly.
So Grandpa has a question in the back seat of the car. Where are we going?
So right now our schedule is about one a month. Obviously, if we get some more support, then we can come out more often. We can do more things. You know how it is with crowdfunding. But right now, we're looking at about one a month.
Oh, I cannot wait. Well, and it's so great because, again, you know how I say on the show all the time that you can't really judge your work until you've had some time between it. Mm-hmm. I'm like a lot of these things, it's like I'm hearing for the first time because I've completely forgotten what we were talking about. Please, I know I may be pushing it, but you don't happen to have another clip, do you?
I do. I have one last one. Last one.
That's what I was hoping for.
It's from our Sonic episode, and this one is towards the beginning when we figure out that Brad hasn't actually played Sonic the Hedgehog ever. So first things first, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Brad, you have never played Sonic the Hedgehog?
No, I'm not really a big video game person. The truth of the matter is that those this sounds really dumb, but those screens make me dizzy. I have a real problem when the point of view shifts and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm not a real big guy on video games.
Those screens make me dizzy. What a fun person to talk to.
Yeah, that's an old man thing if ever there was one.
I tell you what, Kevin, can I tell you something that I enjoy doing, Kevin? Is just sitting real still in a room. I find that to be delightful.
So what do you know about Sonic?
I know he runs really fast.
Okay, yes, keep going.
I know that his arch nemesis is like, he's a tall guy with a big nose, and it's like Dr. something. Dr. like
You're so close. Take a wild guess. Take a wild guess.
Like literally the only words that are coming to mind is Dr. Pickle Nose, Dr. Pickle.
Dr. Pickle Nose was the pitch?
Something. There's a pickle.
Dr. Pickle Nose.
Oh, love a Dr. Pickle Nose.
Dr. Pickle Nose.
It's something like that, though, isn't it? Dr.
No, Kevin, I think we can both agree it's Dr. Pickle Nose from how. So
yeah,
Sonic's.
Exactly.
I'm going to be really upset if your drawing doesn't include Dr. Pickle Nose now.
So here's the thing. I'm a big Sonic guy, and so I'm actually going to put Dave on the spot and ask Dave if he knows.
What, Brad? Why didn't you answer?
What is the name of the nemesis of Sonic's nemesis?
Listen, everyone knows, everyone loves it. It's Dr. Doofenshmirtz. It's
wrong franchise. Wrong franchise.
Wrong small animal fighting a human. Do I have that wrong? Hold on. It's like Eggman or Eggplant or Egg Face or Egg.
Egg.
It's something eggy.
He is egg-shaped. I will give you that.
Doesn't he fly around in the egg?
He flies around in like a metal egg, yes.
Okay, I want to be honest about this because when I was growing up, we did not have Sonic in the house, and none of my friends, it felt like the rich kid had the Genesis,
What do you mean we didn't have Sonic in the house? It was like your parents are like, we will not have that Sonic in this house.
He goes against all the laws of God and man. We're not having that creature in our house.
Hedgehogs don't wear shoes.
Oh, God. And just to reinforce the point, the entire time we're having this conversation, it's 3 professional cartoonists drawing in the background. We don't stop drawing. This conversation is going on while you're watching our ridiculous versions of Sonic taking shape. And that's what's so fun about watching it, is that I'm actively listening to Brad and Kevin as we're having the recording going on. But then watching it back, it's like, holy shit, while Kevin is joking around, he's also doing this incredible drawing that I could never match. And how the hell did he do this?
Did we ever come up with the name of that guy?
Yeah, Dr. Robotnik.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It didn't have egg at all in it?
Well, apparently the character's name in Japan is Eggman.
Oh, okay.
Well, no,
right.
I just want to listen. Just to float my own boat here, as a near native speaker of Japanese, that's the reason why I got the name wrong. There's a reason behind that. Anyway, the whole damn thing. I cannot tell you how excited I am to launch this. And it's one final pitch. I will tell you, Comic Lab listeners, if you love this show, if you have enjoyed Brad and I joking for 6 years, you are going to absolutely love The Wrong Way Show.
Yeah.
Head over there now. One episode will hook you. It's over at youtube.com/@WrongWayShow. We will see you there once a month, gang. Hey, if you're listening while you work, take a minute to stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we're going to tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
When you do, you're going to get hours and hours of podcasts that we've recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on Comic Lab topics.
And access to our exclusive Discord server, which is a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you can support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And listen, if you can't swing a pledge this month, we get it. No worries.
Yeah, listen, you can still support the show by rating us wherever you get your podcasts.
Just leave a 5-star review and a few kind words.
That, along with mentions on social media, is incredibly helpful.
Now, everybody, let's talk comics.
So, Dave, since we've got Kevin with us, what do you say we take a question and see if the 3 of us can answer a question for once?
We'll see if we can find the right way.
Oh, God. You know what? Show's over. I quit.
Well, and this is a great one because Kevin's the perfect person to have in the room for this, because this is somebody that wants us to go a little bit deep on some of the philosophy behind humor writing. And Kevin is very, very good at this. So I'm going to be frankly interested in hearing what Kevin has to say. This comes in from patreon.com/comiclab. Ray writes, what's the difference between clever and funny? During a writer's room some time ago, Dave was working about a joke about horses, and you both agreed that a punchline was clever, but not funny. I agree there's a difference, but how might I notice the difference, or perhaps even learn how to craft one versus the other? Thanks for being amazing, Ray. So Ray's asking, we said at one point, that's clever, but it's not funny. And we just kind of left it by the side, but Ray's right. There is a difference between clever and funny. What is it?
Oh, absolutely. And for those not familiar, on the Patreon side of things, we do a show every couple of weeks here where Brad and I do a writer's room in real time, where much like The Wrong Way, where you're seeing creative stuff happening as it's going, Brad and I are trying to write a comic strip from nothing, from a single idea, from a concept, from a word, from a pitch, out to a fully fleshed out comic. And so as we go, sometimes there's alleyways that we go on to, we're like, nope, this is not working. Let's back up and go back to a different path. And so, having said all that, Kevin, let me throw you under the bus. What is the difference between funny and clever now that you're the guest on the show?
So this is you brought me on because I'm more clever than funny. Is that the implication?
Actually, no. All kidding aside, you're great for this because I think you've got a really, really good grasp on what it takes to be funny.
Oh, absolutely.
And sometimes I'll go even further. I think the biggest problem that a lot of people who are struggling to write humor have is that they find clever and they stop. They're so excited that they found clever. Oh my God, and by the way, it takes one to know one. I spent the first maybe 10 years of my humor writing stopping at clever. And it wasn't until much later that you start to realize that you're never going to be a good humor writer writing clever stuff. You've got to push that concept forward to the funny. And you, Kevin, are good at doing that. But so here's the question. This is the tough one. All of that stuff that I said is real easy. How do you know the difference?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's just one of those things that you know. I guess the cleanest way that I can I can make a difference is that clever is more of an intellectual idea, whereas funny is something more visceral. You feel it in your gut. You feel you know, it's something that makes you want to laugh. Whereas something that's clever, your brain goes, okay, I can see where that came from. But like funny is the thing that will go past clever and will actually make you laugh. An example that I have is I did in LA, I did improv for 15 years or whatever. And I was on a house team at a local theater, and so we did a show every Wednesday night for almost 10 years. And
wow! By the way, what a great muscle for comedy development.
Yeah, that was great.
Just a complete side note from a life advice standpoint.
Highly recommend folks. If you're looking to work those comedy chops, like an improv class is an amazing thing to invest in, and it gets you up and out of your body and out of your head and everything. And it's anyway. So, but I was part of this community and at the theater, and so I would hang out and I would watch other people's shows and things like that, and unfortunately, to a certain degree, it kind of ruined comedy for me. And I don't know if this is true for you guys, but, once you start kind of like learning, how to write comedy and everything like that and perform comedy, you start to see it in other people and you start to see their process.
You see the construction as it's happening.
Yeah, you see the construction as it's happening. And so it took a lot for me after a while at an improv show to actually laugh. Because I was sitting there as an audience member analyzing and being like, that's clever. Yeah, that's clever. That's funny. That's funny. You know what I mean? Yep. And it kind of became this meme of like, if you can tell who the other improvisers in the crowd are because they're the ones sitting there with their arms folded. And they don't laugh. They just nod. They just nod.
Or they literally just go, that's funny. That's funny. But in the most monotone way,
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, so
that's also true with every TV writer I've ever met for comedy is like you can throw out your most A-game material and they with a straight face will go, that's very funny.
Yeah, that's very funny. That's very funny. So for me, like the difference between clever and funny is, again, clever is more of an intellectual thing where your brain knows, all right, that's, I see what they did there. Whereas funny is something that kind of surpasses that and just makes, just makes you laugh. It's almost involuntary.
Well, to make 100% sure that I'm the third one to answer this, Brad, what do you think is the difference between clever and funny?
I think, but the difference between clever and funny for me is the level of surprise that the punchline delivers.
See, this is why I'm glad I went third. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, well, except now you're going to have to come up with something that neither Kevin or I said. Good luck. And I'll tell you again, telling on myself, in the early days of writing Greystone Inn, I relied a lot on puns. Right? Because I could get my head around them. I could see how they worked. Yeah. In fact, I think this happened during Webcomics Weekly sometime. I think Chris summed up Greystone Inn by just saying, 3 panels and a pun.
Oof. Ouch.
It was Greystone Inn was 3 panels and a pun. Which was, by the way, accurate, very accurate. Not all the time, not all the time, but enough that you knew who he was talking about if he said 3 panels and a pun.
And in Chris's defense, he probably did not mean that in a demeaning way.
No, I don't think he did. I don't. Yeah. I honestly don't. It's just that was very accurate.
Yeah.
And that's when I started trying to push the concepts for myself a little bit further.
Right.
Yeah,
And even so if you hear me talk on the writer's room, you hear a real reaction when we're at the pun level, because I automatically just viscerally want to push past that. And also, I've got as a result, a higher threshold when it comes to a pun. For example, I still think that a pun can be a very good punchline, except it's got to be a good pun. And I'll tell you what I mean. A good pun to me is every pun has a word that has a double meaning. It's doing double duty in that sentence.
Right.
Yeah.
If that sentence reads correctly in both versions of that sentence, that's a better pun. And by the way, that's where the surprise comes from, because you get to the end of the sentence and then you go, oh, that works both ways. And there's the surprise, right? So it's still not upper tier, but it's better than it would have been than if it hadn't been that. That you've got that kind of pun where a word does double duty, right? And I'll get just dumb examples. I used to be a baker, but I couldn't make the dough, right?
Yeah.
Not great, but at least it works in both versions of
That's clever. That's clever.
As a matter of fact, it just when we did the live show at the NCS, Hillary Price was talking about working at a pizza place and getting fired, and that next day going to take her cartoons into a newspaper to submit. And I was just a hair slow. And I missed my opportunity because I was going to say, how could they fire you? They knew you needed the dough. That in the moment, I'm going to argue that would have been a great line. Now,
for speed, it would have been a great line. But for actual good lines, that's debatable. but there is something true with that. Like the speed of it makes a difference. You know?
The speed would have made 100%. Now take that against a low level pun, like a tree says, "Leave me alone."
Right.
Technically a pun. Yeah. Technically a clever word use, but not funny. Not funny at all. Really. Right. So that was the beginning of my own journey, was saying it is possible to be, and in my head, I wouldn't even call it clever. I called it technically funny. That's written as if somebody had heard about what a joke was, and they're technically funny, right?
Yeah.
And I had to challenge myself to push my writing past that so that I could get to the real funny stuff.
Well, you had said a construction a minute ago where you said clever, the scale of clever to funny is the amount of surprise. Did you say it something like that?
Yeah. I like it. What takes it beyond clever is the surprise. Is
the level of surprise. And one of the reasons why, and this is important for people to know, in improv especially, or stand-up comedy, or in Brad's case, paneling with Hillary Price on stage, one of the reasons why the timing of that dough joke would have been funnier rather than cleverer, depending on how quick it was, is that the speed of it would have generated more of a sense of surprise for the listener in the audience. And thereby it becomes funnier. Whereas if it took an extra 30 seconds, people go, well, I see how he clevered his way through that. That's not as surprisingly funny, right?
Or they may be sitting there in the audience and have figured it out themselves.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they also would have
stay ahead of them.
Yep. And that's why it's so hard to write humor. Like we were just talking about this on the show, Dave, where we said you can be a very funny person in real life. Being able to write humor is very much more difficult because you don't have that. Your timing is very, you've got a different concept of timing. You can't be spontaneous in a comic strip. You just can't.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the many reasons that writing humor is so difficult.
Well, so now I'll jump in on my version of this because, by the way, I agree with 100% and co-sign both of what you've just said in terms of clever versus funny. In a way, I have a longer description I'm about to get to, but in a way, writing clever is making yourself smile. Writing funny is making someone else smile.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Clever is just like, I'm pleased with myself for what I've done here. Right. Like that's clever. Funny is making someone else in a completely different worldview smile at an event, right? Or a word or a phrase or delivery. But anyway, I've always, this is building on the foundation of what you both have said, is that I've always seen humor as 3 different levels. And I just asked for a little bit of forbearance because I've never really concretized it, but I have sort of a rough idea of what the 3 levels are, right?
Here we go.
So the first level of humor to me has always been the realm of clever. It's wordplay.
Yep.
It's incongruencies in life. It's unexpected result that's a little bit subverted, right? Or it's it's a pleasantry that comes in a way that wasn't expected, right? That's first level humor. So it's a lot of dad jokes. It's a lot of puns. It's also slapstick. It's a lot of that kind of stuff. It's first level humor. Then there's sort of second level humor, which I would describe as most of what is truly funny. So it's anything that's stand-up comedy. It's a really well written airplane movie. It's any of that kind of stuff that's like really solidly delivered jokes, right? And then I've always thought of third level humor as meta humor, which is you have become so used to humor and the constructs of humor that now you're actually joking about the construction of humor. So to me, that's like Tim and Eric. That's like Chris Straub actually is great at this, is the meta humor of humor. So it's really, it's talking about, I Think You Should Leave is a great show for that too, in terms of talking about the construction of humor and how, because it's subverting your own subversions of what you expect for a joke to be, and in so doing becomes funny on a third level, right? And so that to me, and again, I don't have that laid out in concrete terms of when does the first level become the second level, become the third level, but you get where I'm going with that. To me is that there's a third level of funny that's actually breaking down the expected constructs of humor, which is different than breaking down the expected constructs of life, and in so doing, you become meta-humorous.
And so by the way, yes, 100 times yes. But let's talk about that first level again. You make yourself laugh. Now, here's something that we get that again, and the more I go down the road, the more I get a little bit nervous, upset, anxious when successful people talk about their success to younger people.
Right.
And you'll hear very often a humorist or a stand-up comedian or a comedic actor say, all I try, and by the way, tell me if you haven't heard this 100 times. All I try to do is make myself laugh.
Right.
That's all that's important to me, making myself laugh. And if people laugh along, so be it. Have you heard that 100 times?
I've said that. Yes, absolutely.
And the problem, and there's a problem with that, in that, yes, it's true. There's an absolute truth to that. But when a younger person who's not experienced in writing humor hears that, they think, oh, that's all I got to do is make myself. It's such an easy bar to step over. All I got to do, and you'll see when people write something and they get a critique. This happens in the critique channel on the Discord of Comic Lab from time to time. Somebody will say, hey, this joke isn't landing for me, and they'll say, well, I'm going to stick with it. I made myself laugh.
Right.
And the problem is, even though there is a larger truth to making yourself laugh, by larger truth, it means finding your own voice and finding your own pathway for humor. The problem is if you are not doing anything but just making yourself laugh, you've got a real problem.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what the solution to that is 10,000 hours.
Yes.
Because that is Kevin doing 10 years of improv in front of a crowd and seeing what works. And in so doing, he internalizes in his own spectrum of what's funny, what an audience will find funny. It's Brad at his drawing desk for 20 years, seeing what gets emails and social media feedback and all that, and internalizing into his own sense of humor what is broadly accepted and what will broadly be promoted as humorous. And that 10,000 hours is what did it.
Yeah, and it's also looking at your old stuff and saying, that stinks.
Your aesthetic just gets better.
Really got to be able to look at your stuff and look at it objectively, Kevin. Don't you think?
Because nothing has helped me grow as a comedy writer more than looking at old stuff, particularly
Yes.
Brad's old stuff, and saying, "Boy, that is awful," and I can do better than that. Jeez,
That's not only phoned in, that's telegraphed in. Hello. Yeah.
Puns? Puns. You know?
Hey, listen, guilty. I'm telling you that, but but at the same time, seriously, the reason I could laugh at that is that I needed to do that so I could do this.
Yes,
you know,
yes,
it's like
yeah.
I think am I as funny as I'm going to be in another 10 years? Hopefully not, but I think the stuff that I'm writing now is pretty solid. But man, I can't wait for 10 years from now when I look back at this and see how bad this stuff stinks too. You know, you're always getting better, you know? And of course I had to do this so I could do this next thing over here. And that is to say that you've been listening to Comic Lab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
You see, Kevin, this is why he's the third tier of humor on this show. That's, I mean,
At
come
least
on
the
now.
third tier of transitions.
That's right. Your hosts have been my friend Brad Geiger, the editor of webcomics.com and the creator of Evil Inc. at evilcomic.com, and one of the new co-hosts of The Wrong Way Show over at youtube.com/@wrongwayshow.com. A lot of critiques I have for YouTube about the new way they do their URLs. Not loving it. But anyway, that's been Brad.
And my close personal friend Dave Kellett, the co-director of the comics documentary Stripped, the cartoonist of Sheldon at sheldoncomics.com, and Drive at drivecomics.com, and check out Kevin's comic over there at Kevin Comics with an S.
Correct? Yeah.
Over there at kevincomics.com.
And I will say this because he won't say it for himself over at kevincomics.com. Kevin is inarguably one of the best cartoonists I've ever met.
Yes.
He is so
Dude.
damn
Without a
funny. You
doubt.
absolutely have to go check out his work.
Yikes.
And I will say the Comic Lab theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton at theworldrecord.net. And this episode was edited by Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media.
You know, usually this is the part where I say if you love Comic Lab, you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review over on Spotify. But what I'm going to say this time is head on over to YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. This is the time to drive that show up and give us a nice little boost. God knows we need it because I got to tell you, we're going to be doing this show for a long time and we want you to be along for the ride.
I love how that sounded like a desperate cry for help towards the end there. It's like, yeah, I'm just saying I need it. It's been a real tough time for Brad Geiger over here. I just wouldn't mind if you went over to youtube.com and gave it a like or smash that subscribe button. Old Brad needs a win.
What are you in Glenn Ross?
God. So I'm going to say Comic Lab is made possible by your support on patreon.com/Comic Lab. So I will go ahead and say that twice. Patreon.com/Brad. Anything you want to talk about there, champ?
Oh, it's been a tough couple of months.
How you doing there, buddy? How you doing there, sport? Everything holding up all right?
It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right.
So, Kevin, Brad and I have been recording now together for 7 years. Does it feel like you're jumping in menage a trois style to an already established couple?
I mean, yes, but I don't hate it.
That was the first name of the show before Wrong Way Show. We were going to call it Key Party.
Gross. Brad, come on.
And gang, after 4 recordings, the Wrong Way Show had a great run, and I'm out now.
And if you're under the age of 53, a Key Party was very popular in the 1970s.
Were they popular though? Like you always
Well, it
hear
depends
about
on
in
what
pop
neighborhood
culture.
you lived in.
Oh God. God.